I'm Darian Alexis, and welcome to a 20-something survival guide, the place where you and me learn to survive and thrive in our 20s and beyond. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the episode. Other than you, is there any really good resources or other bloggers or books that you think are helpful for people that are planning their wedding? I know my mom got me a book that was like How to Be a Bridesmaid, because I didn't even think about the fact that you have to fix the dress when you're on the altar, to hold my sister's dress up when she went to the bathroom. It's stuff that some people may think is common knowledge, but others of us have no idea. So are there any good resources you can point the listeners to?
I had like one specific name that I can send you, but I think one of the beautiful things about the wedding industry, which is also like as a very type A person, one of like the most annoying things, is that there's just no one size fits all. You know, like what a bridesmaid does in one wedding is going to be so different than what a bridesmaid does in another wedding. You know, I have a friend who her name is Kate, and she's been in 18 weddings in the past 2 years. She's like really like the embodiment of like 27 dresses, you know, and like it's so funny because I'm always like, Kate, like how? And she's like, because each one is new. Each one is fresh. Each one, I literally never know what I'm walking into. Sometimes we're doing choreographed dances, and other times I literally have no idea what we're doing until I walk into the room the day of. So I also think the best thing and the best resource that you can really lean into is that your wedding vendors. And I know this sounds biased because I'm a wedding vendor, but I think the people that you hire really are there to help you throughout your day. Again, I also think like if you're using a planner or a coordinator or something along those lines, like they will so be able to help guide you and like best resources based on your venue and everything that goes on.
The next question I wanted to ask you is, do you have any fun stories or lessons you've learned from the weddings you've attended?
My goodness,
so many. Share one, two.
Oh my goodness, so many different fun stories. I think that there are always like the fun little moments in between. I've seen a lot of people who get surprised on their wedding days. So like friends who didn't think that they would be able to attend, being able to like really show up. Parents are always some of the funniest people on a wedding day because like they kind of go into crazy mode in the nicest of ways. They're just so excited their kid is getting married, you know? And I've seen parents who like look so like prim and proper and buttoned up, like jump on a split on the dance floor or like start twerking with the band. Like just these like really fun kind of insane out of character moments, you know? I think the thing that I always love the most on a wedding day is really in that bridal suite. With my job, I get to be very close to the bride or the groom or whoever's getting married. And I spend a lot of time in there. And I truly think that some of friendship at its finest is in those early hours of a wedding morning. Seeing people just like be so excited, seeing people be so happy, seeing people just feel excitement around what that looks like. That's something that is beautiful. I have so many fun stories. One that I'll tell is that we were shooting a wedding in the Bahamas, and the matron of honor was actually the bride's boss. And the mom was there, and, you know, she had her friends there as well. And there was just a moment that the bride went away. She was just getting dressed, putting on her dress, and the matron of honor and the mom just started talking. And both of them were like, she's grown so much over the past couple of years. There's so many things that is who she is today because of, you know, these two women. And they were just being there for that moment and like seeing that. And understanding that, I think, was so beautiful. And also something that was just like one of those moments that the bride probably wouldn't have seen, but we were able to capture in terms of like wedding content, but also just kind of one of those moments that wouldn't normally happen in like the day to day, but was so beautiful to see it come together.
That's amazing. And is there any stories or like horrible things that have happened at a wedding that you think the listeners should avoid?
Oh my goodness. Timelines on a wedding are kind of your make and break. I say it just in the sense of like, not that you have to be like so rigid, but like, again, this is where I think that like your planner or your coordinator or whoever is there on your day, like needs to be the person that's in charge. I think the best piece of advice that I could give is you should not be the point of contact on your wedding day.
Such a good tip.
Just anybody else but you. I always tell my couples like 12 p.m. is your cutoff off the phone. We're turning it on airplane mode. If you need to have your phone because like it is your emotional support animal or whatever, like have it, that's fine, but like put it in somebody else's bag. Like you do not need to touch it. You do not need to hold it. And in that same vein, you do not need to be the person who is in charge, because there are just going to be a million things that are going on, number one. And also too, like timelines on weddings. Yes, we will typically fall a little bit behind, but we kind of want to use that timeline as like Bible, as like this very
For
much
sure.
like where we need to be and what it needs to go. I feel like any mistakes that I've seen on a wedding have been because we've gotten so far off the timeline, which again is why like the success of your day is the success of your vendors as well.
It's a beautiful tip. And I've always heard from everyone to build in that extra buffer time into the timeline just to have more time than you think you need, because you will definitely run out of time.
Yeah. And I always like to say on a wedding day, what normally would take 5 minutes takes about 30 minutes.
Yeah, which is crazy, but firsthand can attest to that as well.
Yeah. And again, you don't like believe it and you don't think it, but it just happens.
Thank you for sharing. Next, I wanted to hop into some listener questions. So the first question says, I can't decide what to do for my bachelorette party. I want to go somewhere big, but would feel super guilty making my friends pay when they're already paying for a shower and wedding gift. What's your advice?
This is one that's like hard because I'm like, on one hand, I'm like, it is your wedding and you should not feel like you need to compromise for anything. But then also too, like respecting and understanding people's financial situations is also so important. I don't know if I've ever publicly shared this, but whatever, I don't care. Again, so we'll speak from my experience, then we'll give advice. So from my personal experience, I remember my bachelorette, I was like, I want to shake my booty on a boat and I want to have like a party bus experience. Both of those are very expensive things. So I paid for both of them out of my own pocket because I said, this is really important for me to do. I want this to happen. So I paid for that. And so I think it is also okay for you to pay for things if you really want them. Like this is kind of my philosophy, is that like, if you're like, I am requiring everyone to wear this shirt, or I'm requiring everyone to get this heels, you should pay for that, because I think people should be able to buy and or spend their money on things that they want to be able to do. So in that way, I would say to this prospective bride, first off, congratulations. This is so exciting. If you want to do it big, do it big. Go to the Cancun, go to the Tulum, get the party, but also realize that like you might not get everyone to be there. You might get one person, you might get two people. And that is incredible. And I think like we might have to compromise on the execution of it, but that doesn't mean that it still can't be your original vision. So it might be something that like, hey, maybe some family members can come to it. Maybe we add in, cousins, moms, parents, whoever it may be, to help and give you that. I would ask like, what's more important? Is it more important that your full group and its entirety is there? Or is it more important that you get whatever your quote unquote big vision is? And if it's really important for you to have all of your girls there or to have all of your people there, then I would say, where are you willing to financially contribute? Are you willing to definitely subsidize hotel cost stay? I've worked with brides who say, hey, if you can get there and you can pay for your accommodations, I will pay for everything else. Food, trips, excursions that we do, etc. So again, I would just really think through that and see like, okay, what's most important from there? The people or the experience? And then we start breaking it down because of that.
I love that tip. And I was curious, this is just from me. What's your hot take on combined bachelor and bachelorette parties?
I love them. I love them. So in our wedding, we did that. We were getting married in New York, but we're both from the South and both of our families, they're very big. And my parents did not get invites to our wedding. So we said, hey, you guys can throw us something in the South, invite whoever you want. We don't care. But the wedding, like we know who the guest list is. We kept it very small. And so we rented out a joint house. And for 3 days, we had our entire bridal party there. And it was the best thing in the world.
So fun.
Because everyone knew each other, So like we spent those first couple of days, we played games. We did a boat day. We did a party day. We did lots of things. It was the best. But that's because I think we spent a lot of intentional time, like making sure everyone got to know each other. It was also like, you're walking with this person in the wedding, be friends. Like you're doing this with this person, be friends. And it was so fun. And I think it really helped us because we were having such a small wedding as well. It was really nice because so many people knew each other, and it wasn't kind of like, where do you work? And like, what do you do? These people were like, oh my God, how's so-and-so? Or how's this thing that you told me about last time that we saw each other? But I think you got to have the right group for it as well.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And that segues perfectly into the next question, which is who should I invite to my bachelorette? Just my bridesmaids, or can I invite friends too?
Okay, so I always say you can invite whoever you want to your bachelorette, but if you invite them to the bachelorette, they have to be invited to the wedding.
Yes.
Like that is the one caveat. If you invite them to the bachelorette, they do have to be invited to the wedding.
Do you feel the same way with a wedding shower? Because I know people who have invited people to a wedding shower, but not the wedding. I think I personally would feel awkward doing that, but
So I think it depends on who's throwing the shower, right? So I think like if we go back to like Southern culture, again, grew up in the Atlanta, I think like if my mom was throwing me a shower and she wanted to invite her friends who have seen me grow up and who have been a part of that, then like that, I don't think that there is any expectation that they are then going to come to the wedding. But I feel like if I'm personally reaching out to you, or if I'm throwing this for myself, personally, I would feel awkward. I think at the end of the day, you don't have to do anything, you know?
yeah.
But I do also agree that I think I would personally feel awkward if I, as bride, was reaching out to invite someone and then didn't invite them to the wedding. But I also think about your bachelorette in the terms of, I don't want to say that large bachelorettes are not it, because who am I to say that? But under that same vein, I think sometimes people believe like, oh, the bigger the bachelorette, the easier it is cost wise. But that's like yes and no, because like
definitely.
the more people that there are there, the bigger house that you have to get. That comes with its own restrictions on what things look like and things don't. It also becomes that like reservations for dinners like have to be pre-booked, and typically we'll have deposits, and typically we'll have a 20% gratuity already tacked on, if not a higher gratuity because of a larger group. So again, and like this is just like my type A mind, just like running in circles, like yes, a big group can be it. And I think that like it should be your bridesmaids, it should be your something blue crew, but it should be people who like you would be spending very intentional time with, or like a close group of friends. And also like if you are traveling somewhere for your bachelorette, I do think you have to think a little bit about group dynamics of like who is going to be on the bachelorette, who is not going to be on the bachelorette. To me, like, and maybe I'm just spoiled now, but like I don't love sharing beds with people that I don't know, you know? So like I think you start to think through all of those like group dynamics. Also like 2 bathrooms for 12 girls. I don't know, you know, like I
Feels
don't
like
know.
college again.
Exactly. You know, so I think it's also like kind of thinking through that as well.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, this I think is going to be a perfect question for you. So, what is normal when it comes to tipping vendors at a wedding? I have no idea what I should budget for when thinking about the venue, wait staff, photographer, etc.
Totally. Okay. So first off, a tip is never required. That's first and foremost, first 4 month point blank period, a tip is never required. You know, I think a tip is always something that is just nice. People who are going to be there on the day. I also think it really depends on like if it is someone like, you know, typically, again, I can only speak for my business, but like if you were to hire me as a wedding content creator, I set my own pricing. You know, I don't ever expect a tip on a wedding day. I would say that I'm personally tipped in probably about 45% of the weddings that I shoot. So I think it just really depends on the person. Always like to personally, like when we were planning and as we continue to plan just different events, and when I work with friends and family who ask for advice, I'll always typically tip the bartenders, and I'll always typically tip out the wait staff who's there. I think that can all really depend on just like where you are, your venue, how long people are on site, etc. But then everyone doesn't necessarily have to have a tip. I think if there's someone who goes above and beyond, you can also tip after the fact. I know that there were vendors from our wedding who I didn't even realize everything that they did until afterwards. And so we sent them tips retroactively. Best tip that you can give a vendor is number 1, to post about us and like tell people that you loved working with us. And number 2 is to leave a review. You know,
Yes.
For me personally, I would prefer if you left me a raving review and told all your friends about me.
Heavy on the review, heavy on the 5 stars. People
Yeah,
don't understand how far it goes
truly.
for creators.
Yeah, honestly, for a creator in any type, you know?
Yeah.
But I will say, if you are going to do tips, remember, you're not going to be the point of contact on your wedding. So you're going to have little envelopes that you're going to pre-put your cash in, and you're going to give it to that planner or coordinator, and you are going to write the person's name on it, and they are going to give that person a little envelope. And you
I
will
love that idea.
have to.
And so you said that it's not needed. So do you think people are still, if they are deciding to tip, are doing that 15 to 20% tip, or is it completely different for the wedding
I
industry?
think it just is completely different. I mean, I think industry standard for like service providers, so like
Mm-hmm.
hair, makeup, potentially photographer, videographers, is like anywhere actually between like 10 and 15%. And then for that like wait staff and things like that, it's typically again anywhere in that 10 to 15% range, but then you're dividing that up between the people who are going to be there. As well, I typically on a wedding day just like throw 100 in the bartenders their cup of what they're using. But I think again, there's no like one industry standard. There's averages that we can find and that we can use, and I think are helpful guides. But I also think it's like what you're able to provide.
Awesome. And last but certainly not least is, how do I pick a dress code for my wedding? Should weddings always be black tie?
It's like you're reading my mind right now. This is what I have been talking about for the
I know you just posted a video about it too, so I'm going to link the
yeah.
video down below so they can go
Is my
watch.
number one thing is that most people do not understand wedding dress codes. And I will be the first person to say I did not understand a wedding dress code until I started working in the industry. And I think one of the really interesting things too is that like, if you go to a wedding, like at the end of the day, you want to feel comfortable and you want to feel beautiful and you want to feel all these things. But like also the couple puts a lot of time and effort into this wedding. And I have worked with couples before who have been like, we were really excited to see everyone in this one dress code, and then like no one showed up in it, or someone showed up in white, or
Hmm.
someone showed up in whatever it may be. So number one, do all weddings need to be black tie? No, actually, if you are getting married when it's either super hot outside or like in a tropical destination, you shouldn't have black tie. Black tie really should be reserved for like kind of big, grandiose. Think like you wear black tie to galas. You're having people who are in full length gowns. You're having people potentially in like diamonds, and so like I think that should match the venue and the time of day that you're going to be there. So like typically I would think black tie is reserved more for like you are getting like married in a big ballroom somewhere like
Hmm.
the plaza, somewhere if you're in a city scape, where you're having a nighttime wedding, your black tie isn't for your 3 p.m. wedding on the beach, or
A
what that
backyard wedding.
yeah. And I also think too, like black tie means that traditionally females should be in heels. So like you don't really
Hmm.
want to be in heels running around like in grass and in cobblestone and things of that nature. So a lot of it I think really depends on like your venue and also kind of what your guest experience is like. Again, I don't think black tie is like buffet food either. Those are typically going to be accompanied by a seated dinner portion, a plated dinner service where your guests are going to be sat and fed. So just kind of like the optics of it.
No, that is awesome. And everyone, as I'm saying, I'm going to go link the video below because I know you go super in depth
Yeah,
with the different dresses, what to wear. Because I personally, when I thought black tie, I just thought that meant like nice dresses. I didn't
yeah.
realize there was a color scheme to
It,
it and
it's
everything.
most people. I would say that like most people use black tie when they mean formal. I think people
Yeah.
just want
Yeah.
people to look nice, and so like I honestly think that like most weddings can get away with like a semi-formal to
Hmm.
formal dress code. I don't think there's ever an instance that you should wear jeans to a wedding unless someone specifies that you should wear jeans to a wedding. I think most people just want people to look nice, have their hair done. I think honestly, most people end up in that semi formal to formal category. I think you can start getting into that cocktail if we're doing something that's maybe a little bit more destination, maybe a little bit more beach, maybe a little bit more like, I want this to feel like we're in my parents' backyard and like hanging out. Like I think that's really fun. And then people put their own twist on it. Like I say that there's 4 main dress codes. You have cocktail, semi-formal, formal, and black tie. And then you put your spin on it. So you might have like garden formal or like coastal formal or coastal
Hmm.
semi-formal or cowboy cocktail. Like then it can be fun to I mean, please don't put cowboy cocktail on your advice because I think I'm
Reminds me
stressing
of the
out.
cowboy copper.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, but I think then like once you kind of figure out what dress code you're going for, then we can start to play with it and make it feel more like you on your wedding day.
And what was the dress code you did for your wedding?
I did have a black tie wedding. All the guys had to be in Texas and all the females had to be in floor length gowns. We did tell everyone to bring a pair of sneakers. And so because we had a very exciting dance floor. So once drinks started flowing and we kind of got through some of the formalities, we did have a moment where we told people that they could change into their sneakers and dance the night away.
I freaking love that because the dancing is my favorite part of a wedding. I've been to weddings that don't even have a dance floor. That one was a rough one to get through for me. I make anything my dance floor though, so I think that's
100%.
awesome.
But yeah, and I remember having conversations like with like people who are like, I don't own a tux. And I'm like, okay, well, here's where you can rent one. I think there is like when you're deciding your dress code, understanding where people in your life are and also understanding like what makes sense for them and just like what makes sense for your community really matters.
Yeah, I agree. You have touched on so many amazing tips. I think the listeners are going to have a great time with this one. But I was curious if you have any last final tips you wanted to give the listeners for a successful and stress free wedding.
My goodness. Successful and stress-free wedding. I think if you are going as a guest or if you are lucky to be invited as a bridesmaid, the best advice that I can give is that like this is a super exciting time in this person's life. And I think anything that you can do, like text them to say that you love the invitations, or when they, at the wedding, like take pictures of their flowers or their menu cards and tell them how much you loved it. People put so much time and attention and detail into their day, and they really just want their guests to have a really good experience. And so I think anything that you can do to just be like, I'm so excited. How can I help? I love this thing that you did. Wedding planning's hard and sometimes it really sucks. And so I think just those little moments to get, text message from people like, oh my God, I got your save the date today or something along those lines really goes a long, long way. And I will say for my couples who are getting married, this is such an exciting time to soak it all in, but also too, like you're going to have so many other exciting times that the wedding doesn't go 100% perfect or like to your vision. It doesn't mean that it wasn't perfect. It doesn't mean that it wasn't a magical day. You guys just created your own magic along the way.
I freaking love that. And it reminds me so much of all of the weddings I see on TikTok when it ends up raining.
Yeah.
Because everyone's like, I don't want it to rain on my wedding day. And then you look at the pictures and they're like majestic.
Yeah.
So I think that everything that goes wrong, it won't matter at the end of the day. So thank you so much for sharing all your tips.
Totally. Happy to help. This is so fun. And hopefully this helps out one or two people.
Yeah, no, definitely. But before we get going today, the last question I ask all my guests is what is your number one piece of advice for 20 somethings?
Oh my goodness. Be a multi-passionate person. I think that is my number one piece of advice that I would give to anybody. But also too, I think that your 20s are such a time that you are finding yourself, you're finding your friendships, you're finding your footing, and like you really can't fail. I know like I say that and I put air quotes up and all of those things, but to say like be a multi-passionate person. Be someone who loves to travel, but also loves to stay home. Be someone who loves to read, but also someone who likes to go out and party. Be someone who's up for trying new things. I think that there is an inherent beauty in kind of saying yes to things, even if they feel annoying or you feel like you're above it. Your 20s are a time that you don't have to figure it out, even though I know it looks like on social media, everyone has everything figured out. But like people and places will start to fall into things. And I think if you can keep yourself multi-passionate and not silo yourself into this is my one personality or this is my one style or this is my one friend or this is my one whatever it may be, that you'll be really surprised kind of like where life will take you.
Thank you so, so much for sharing that because I think a lot of times us 20 somethings are being fed online that in order for us to do well, we have to niche down.
Yeah.
And so the fact that you're saying it's okay that we don't have to niche down and we can live our life in all the different ways that we want to, amazing.
Totally. I adopted in my 20s and I still live buy this now. But I started saying I'm not too good for anything. And it started off because I think my friend group went through a period where we're like, we're sober curious, like we're not drinking or anything, which great, love it. Love that. But then like I had friends who were like, let's rip tequila shots, you know? And so like I then started to say like, okay, I'm never too good for like a tequila shot. I might not do like 6 like I used to, but like if I'm out with friends, even if we're at the classiest place in the world, like if someone orders tequila shots, like we're going to do them, you know? And then that kind of really trickled into only like to fly this one airline or whatever. But you know, my friend's having a surprise get together and one airline doesn't go there. Like I'm not too good to fly one airline over the other, you know? And I think that if you haven't read Shonda Rhimes' Yes Year, it's something I recommend to everybody, or The Year of Yes by Shonda Rhimes. And this was kind of my version of that, to be like, okay, I'm not above anything, you know? If, you know, I'm not above doing this one thing or sitting here or staying at this hostel or doing whatever it may be. Even though I try to say like, oh, I'm this corporate baddie and now I live this great life and I'm in, you know, a big city and all of these things. But again, I think everyone is fed this ideal and this narrative of it's one way. And if you put your foot forward and if you do that, and I think that there are pros of that can be really beautiful and that can help you with time management and things, but also too, like, you got to leave room for those unexpected moments to happen.
Yes, agreed. And so thank you just so much again for joining me today. I really value the conversation that we had, and I know the listeners will take it away with them as well. How is the best way for them to reach you should they want to book with you? Is it your website, your Instagram, your YouTube? I'll put it all in the show notes, but where should they go?
I appreciate. I'm Plan with Lore everywhere. You're always welcome to reach out directly from my website, or I'm like very big in my DMs. May take me a little bit to get there, but if you have a question, like if you're going to a wedding, you're like, oh my God, is this appropriate? DM it to me. Like, I am so happy to be like, yes, no. Like sometimes you just need that person, that third party friend who will be like, no, girlie, you can't wear that one. Or like, this one is great. I will be that person.
Well, thank you everyone so much for tuning in today. Thank you, Laura, for giving us all the wedding tips. As a reminder, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. Make sure to rate it because, as we said, these 5-star reviews really do help us. And don't forget to survive and thrive.